food peace is a birthright in my mind. I think everyone should feel comfortable in their own skin and also be able to eat when their body says it has a need.
I'm Jill Angelo, host of the Geneve podcast series for women's health in midlife. I speak with the most forward-thinking experts in the health and wellness industries. These experts are helping women 40 plus feel confident and in control of their health in the most vibrant years of their lives. So join us on this journey of women's health. I spoke with Julie Duffy Dillon, registered dietitian, mental health counselor, and food behavior expert, on her practice of partnering with people on what she calls their food peace journey. Julie owns Birdhouse Nutrition Therapy, a premier source of eating disorder treatment and prevention. You can hear more from Julie in her weekly podcast, Love Food. Learn more at juliedillonrd.com. In this part one of my two-part conversation with Julie, we talked about fat phobia, culturally acceptable disordered eating, and what she calls the food peace journey, and why so many of us feel like we're at war with food and with our own bodies. So, Julie, on your site, as a dietitian, you talk about the food peace journey, and that's the first time I've heard peace used in combination with food. Can you explain what food peace and what that journey means to women everywhere and your clients?
Yes, I would love to. I believe that we're born knowing how to eat. We come out and we let everyone know when we're hungry, and we let them know, really poignantly when we're full. And we feel really good when we have hit like a satiety point, and we don't feel guilty when we feel full and satisfied. And fortunately, we live in a world where dieting and other forms of disordered eating are considered normal eating. And I think it's because we have such a narrow view of what a healthy body is and what a beautiful body is. So dieting is like the new default setting. We were born with this one default setting, but now there's this new default setting that culture has basically taught us, and we learn it really early on. So I like to intervene by helping people to get back to that original default setting. So food peace is, reconnecting to fuel, food giving us fuel, pleasure, and connection. And also recognizing when we feel connected to food and that pleasure, when we feel energized from food, it also promotes health and it energizes us. So when we have that connection to that health and that energy, it also doesn't mean that we have also a connection to the guilt and the shame and regret that I think the world has programmed us to believe. So food peace is a birthright in my mind. I think everyone should feel comfortable in their own skin and also be able to eat when their body says it has a need. And so the food peace to me is the journey returning back to those like original default settings.
I love that. I love food and personally, and there's so much enjoyment that comes out of it, and that getting back to the notion of, eating or consuming what you need or want when you need or want it, based on what your body is telling you is just a really peaceful thing to think about. But why, in your experience, is it so difficult for adults, mainly women 40 plus, because that's kind of the sweet spot of our Geneve audience? Why is it so hard for them to have a healthy relationship with food?
I feel like part of that is because most women are engaging in some kind of dieting. There's some statistics I always hang on to, and that 60% of adult women engage in like pathological weight control, which includes constant dieting or over-exercising. And then at least half of these adult women say that eating is devoid of pleasure and causes guilt. And something I always think about, I'm like, okay, the only time we should really feel guilty about eating is if we steal the food, So, and healthy eating does include pleasure to me, but yet our culture is obsessed with the thin ideal. And I think it's also obsessed with youth. I don't think that's going to be shocking to anyone listening. And I think along with that, our culture is saturated with fat phobia. It's just so scared of gaining weight. And so that adult women get this really clear picture that in order to be heard, they have to stay thin and stay looking young. And if you trust your body and, if you trust hunger and fullness, basically what evolves is like, as we get older, especially as women, our bodies are always changing. I mean, they're always changing right from we're born. And I think as a woman, that's just like the one constant we have to like find a place to feel okay with, because even if we do fight it, our bodies are still changing. And the fighting is what can become so, I don't know, just distracting from life and make it really hard to enjoy life. And so if you choose to reject that, this cultural norm of hating your body and distrusting it, if you reject it, it ends up being like radical. I think it's a lot to ask someone to reject the diet mentality. And I think it is something that in the end, because I'm a dietitian, so I value health, in the end, I think it promotes health long term, but it is considered super radical.
On your blog, you talk about intuitive eating and letting your body's natural hunger and fullness, cues dictate what and how you eat. How do you coach someone through that who's having a hard time just letting that happen? Because it kind of goes back to the point you just made around life, allowing the changes in our bodies to happen, whether that's in relation to what we consume or the weight we carry or the wrinkles we have on our faces. How do you help women manage through that?
When I talk to a woman who is at basically like a diet rock bottom, she's tried every diet under the sun and still feels like she has an unhealthy relationship with food and she probably hates her body or feels a lot of negative things connected to it. For a lot of women, I like just to meet them where they are, and to find out what their experiences have been like. And I think one of the best things to do is just to really acknowledge this cultural expectation and how it hasn't worked. This hasn't worked yet, so you've tried it for the last 20, 30 years. I don't think it's going to work if you keep trying at it. So let's try something else. And at first it can be really exciting, oh my gosh, I have permission to eat whatever I want. But it also can be really scary, like, oh, I have permission to eat whatever I want. I'm not going to ever stop. And so that's the part where I feel like it's important for a person to really make their own path or their own journey. And what I consider myself as kind of this partner on their journey. And I've helped a lot of people on this path, so I can kind of give them some tidbits and info that has helped other people along the way. And in the end, what I want any woman to know is that they are the expert of their body. Like, they know more about how their body runs and what their body needs than anyone else, because they've been there the whole time. And so we shouldn't really have to listen to all of the quote unquote they, the recommendations they make, whoever these they people are, and really acknowledging that you have that wisdom within you. And so reconnecting to that may just mean starting to move away from dieting. So some people will run away and never go back, and other people will a little at a time. They may just start to drop a few food rules here and there, but they may hold on to some others. And that's okay. You just got to go at your own pace. And then eventually, as a person starts to move away from dieting, they'll start to feel their hunger and fullness cues come back. And so what I would encourage someone to do then is to lean into that and say hello to them and find out how they're talking to them. How do you know when you're hungry? How does your body let you know? Because it's going to be different for everyone. And then how do you know when you're satisfied? And really just learning again how those work for you, and then trying to find a way to trust them. And at first, it's like anything new we're trusting. It's going to be scary and hard. And but then when you see them working out okay, even when we make mistakes and stuff like that, it ends up being almost like riding a bike. It ends up being like second nature. It just comes back.
One interesting thing you mentioned is food rules. What are some of those food rules that we hold over us that we might be aware of or might not be aware of that you see commonly?
I think there are so many food rules. There's no way I can list them all, but some really common ones are, we should, like basically it starts with, I should do this. And so it may be when to eat or really when not to eat. I feel like one of the most common food rules I see is to not eat after a certain time of day, almost like our body knows when the sun is setting or something. And so even if we're hungry or even starving and it's 7 o'clock at night, oh, God forbid we can't eat, because that would just be so bad. And then another is like, calorie counting. I feel like I hear so many calorie rules that really as a dietitian just blow me away, because I hear common calorie limitations. I hear like 1,200 or 1,500 calories. I'm like, well, maybe if you're 85 years old, that sounds fine. Like it may feel satisfying and enough to energize you, but really that's just like the amount of calories for most adult women that our body needs just to like run its basic organs. Like that's not going to give you any fuel to move your body. That's not going to give you any fuel to have like a memory, that's basically just going to keep your heart and your liver functioning. It's not really going to give you like vitality. It's not going to give you, it's not going to connect you to like the essence of you. So that's one thing. And then another thing that's moving, I feel like these days, is really blaming the macronutrient and, just saying, well, I shouldn't have carbs or I shouldn't have fat. And, there's so many different rules out there with that. And then I would also say there's certain rules with that we may have been brought up with that can be conflicting with diet culture, like, oh, I must clean my plate. I need to feel bad if I don't clean my plate. There's definitely things like that. And then there's all food rules with even just like pleasurable food. If you have dessert, I only should have them so often. I mean, seriously, I could probably spend about 3 or 4 hours just naming food rules. So there are so many, but they usually start with shoulds.
Do you find that women have challenges interpreting hunger? Is it true hunger because their body needs to be nourished, or is it hunger because they're stressed, or it's another coping mechanism? Like how do you help people work through kind of listening and understanding the hunger pain?
Our body does a really important job of letting us know when we need fuel, and it'll let us know through hunger. And that's why I always ask a woman, how does your body tell you when it has a need? And I usually keep it open-ended like that, and because sometimes it will become a hunger as in like I need fuel, or it could be more of a metaphorical or a symbolic hunger, so whether it's from stress. And I think meeting your needs is really important. And food, for many women that I talk to, especially if they have a relationship with food that includes lots of dieting, food sometimes will meet these symbolic needs too. And it's important to have compassion with that. There's been times where food did help you cope with stress, with trauma, with loneliness. And we need to be okay with that because it helped you get through it. And I think when we have symbolic hungers, so if a person is like, okay, I want to eat, and my stomach normally tells me it's hungry, and I'm not feeling that right now, it must be symbolic hunger. I think it's really cool to help a woman get to the point, be like, okay, that's my body telling me it has an unmet need. And my body's just trying to tell me in the language that it has, and it's hoping that I'm listening. And, I have this part of me that thinks of these hungers, whether it's physical hunger or symbolic hunger, is really, as women, it's hard for us to admit that we have needs, and it's hard for us to admit we need to take up space and stake our claim. And so as long as we are connecting to meeting these needs, or at least exploring them, I think it really helps then for people to start to heal their relationship with food. And one thing I talk a lot about with clients is this symbolic hunger.
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit more about what you mean by symbolic hunger?
Symbolic hunger to me is, in a nutshell, is like eating outside of physical hunger. And sometimes people call that emotional eating or binge eating. And, really, when I hear emotional eating and binge eating, I feel like there's a negative connotation with it. But every human being eats outside of physical hunger at some point. It's not necessarily unhealthy. And I think what ends up becoming an issue is if that's the only way a person has found to cope with a trauma or a negative experience, or even just any kind of feelings, that's when it becomes something that sometimes will promote someone to have a visit with me. And really what's cool is if a person can identify when they're feeling symbolic hunger, which, when they're just eating outside of that hunger, or physical hunger rather, if they can really try to use something we call non-judgmental curiosity, which is really trying hard to be compassionate and understanding of where you are right now. Because emotional eating, binge eating, or just, eating outside of hunger in general, I feel like people really look down on it, especially if you're a woman of size. So if you're walking around in this larger body and eating outside of hunger, it can feel really shameful. And so staying in that shameful place, I feel like just keeps people at like a dead end. It doesn't help meet any needs, and it just like makes it even tougher to come out of, So when a woman's in that place of symbolic hunger and realizes in the moment that she's there, I really want her to try to call it out and try to just step back and consider the bigger picture. And from there, I want them to try to find the meaning behind it. And there's some questions you can kind of ask to figure out the meaning behind it, which are really cool that I would love to share with you too. One of them is asking, what was I experiencing right before I started symbolically eating? So sometimes my clients will talk about speaking with someone that really was getting on their nerves, or thinking about an event, or they were trying to relax. And that may have been happening right before they kind of reached for the chips, or, whatever kind of food they were going for during the symbolic eating. And to really, in those moments, to realize there's no right or wrong, just consider the possibilities. And then along with that, were they feeling anything uncomfortable? So sometimes people say I was stressed, or I was feeling angry or frustrated or bored or happy. And when a person in those moments can be like, okay, I'm symbolically eating, and this is what was happening, and this is what I'm feeling. And what it really is cool to do then eventually is to say, okay, when I'm lonely, what do I really need? What do I need? And for some people, it's like, oh, I really want to talk to my friend. So maybe I can text her. It also may be feel like maybe if you're stressed, like, okay, what do I really need when I'm stressed? And for some people, it may need that they need to listen to some music. These are some really basic kind of examples, but I'm hoping it's giving a picture of what I'm talking about. And honestly, I just explained something that for a lot of people can take 4 or 5 months to work towards. It's not something that really is easy to do overnight. So if a person's listening and is wondering if they should try it, I say yes. It's really good work, and it's hard. So be patient with the process, because it'll take a bit of time too to connect all those dots.
What I love is that you take this so much beyond counting calories or having a food diary, but really also to mentally thinking about moments in time where your food behavior or your relationship with food started to change. And I just think that's such a mental getting to know yourself kind of exercise that's fresh and different. And I love that notion, because we don't ever spend time doing that in relation to food. In part 2 of my conversation with Julie, we talked about being conscious of our own eating and how eating issues seem to disproportionately affect women in midlife. How do we know when our eating has become problematic? And what can we do about our own approach to food? Thanks for listening to the Geneve podcast series. We welcome your feedback at geneve.com. That's GENNEVE.com. You can follow us on Facebook and subscribe to us on iTunes or Stitcher, and you'll never miss an episode. The Geneve podcast series is produced by Shannon Perry. Theme music by Smitty. And until next time, watch the Geneve website for new stories and offers, all dedicated to women's midlife health.